Morning. 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 Thank you for your early morning.
Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Secretary.
Sir, how are you doing?
Thank you very much for having me in. Chad Wolf, you're acting Secretary of Homeland Security. You had the largest law enforcement organization in the world. Through the lens of Homeland Security, what's the biggest threat to American soil?
I think there's a variety of different threats that we are looking at today, whether it's our nation state threats, and that's China, Iran, Russia, North Korea, and others. Immigration, border security, certainly a priority of this administration. Will continue to secure our borders. And then domestic terrorism, making sure really after 9/11, we were focused on those foreign terrorist organizations. So while we're still focused on them, we don't see their threat here imminent in the homeland as we once did.
In fact, since then, domestic terrorists have killed more people on U.S. soil than foreign terrorists.
Right. So what we're seeing and what we're focused on is really that sort of that homegrown violent extremist in any form across the ideological spectrum.
Are Antifa activists, the anti-fascist protesters, domestic terrorists?
I think they certainly can be in certain circumstances as they target law enforcement and they target law enforcement officers specifically.
Are there any deaths, killings that Antifa is responsible for?
Well, I think that's very difficult to answer because, as you know, Antifa is a very loose-knit organization. They don't have...
The short answer is no, right?
Yeah. But what we do see in places like Portland and some of these other rioting is we certainly see these anarchists, and Antifa's included there, taking part and being part of that movement.
The American people see terrorists and anarchist protesters, demonstrators, very differently. And there's not another terrorist organization where you would call them terrorists, but you can't point your finger to a specific death they're responsible for.
When we're looking at violent protest, violent demonstrations and the like, we saw that here in D.C., we see it in Portland, and we see others. What we do know is that Antifa and other anarchist groups are certainly behind those. We see organization, we see tactics that they use very similar to law enforcement and military. We see training involved.
You were on the mean streets of Portland. I have family there,
Right.
Mom, a couple sisters,
Right.
Nieces and nephews. The presence of federal officers, DHS officers,
Yep.
really inflamed things there. Like there were demonstrators there, but it was small. All of a sudden there was this massive melee because they were protesting you.
Well, I would disagree with that. I don't subscribe to the fact that we inflame the violence there in Portland.
People who live there tell me that yes, indeed, there were protesters and they were rowdy and they did like throw things at cops.
Right.
But what we had after federal law enforcement came in was thousands of people.
What I would say is before DHS arrived there in any large numbers, June was a very violent month. The mayor is on record saying it is a very violent month and encouraging people to stop the violence. We had law enforcement officers come in because that courthouse was targeted.
What would you say you've learned from that? You're staying in Portland. What are you going to change about your tactics?
Well, I think the department probably just needs to do a better job communicating. Peaceful protests, the department has no concerns with. We don't see that covered on the news. There's no arrests, there's no injuries. So lesson learned is better communicating exactly who we are targeting. We are not targeting peaceful protests, individuals exercising their First Amendment rights.
So it was a mistake to let the people of Portland think that you were...
I don't think it was a mistake. I think that the other side had a disinformation campaign that was very effective. They would go out and they would use social media talking about how DHS was targeting peaceful protesters. We know that's a lie. It's been debunked. It's not accurate.
As part of communicating, letting people know who the officer are. So what caused a lot of local heartburn and investigations is unmarked federal officers. People didn't know at the time what agency they were from, coming in, putting protesters in unmarked vans. In retrospect, that part was a mistake.
Again, I would say those myths, again, have been debunked.
Oh, wait, that part's not a myth.
It is, absolutely. Every officer that is operating in Portland has police on their front of their vest.
But it didn't say who they were or their agency.
It has police on their front, police on the back, has a patch on their shoulders that says either DHS or the agency within DHS that they are from.
Putting protesters in unmarked rental vans, that's not something you would do again.
We use both marked vehicles and unmarked vehicles.
So you would do it again?
Every law enforcement agency across this country uses marked vehicles and unmarked vehicles. Now, we need to be clear about why we used unmarked vehicles. So when you go out to arrest an individual in a very violent crowd, you don't want to do that necessarily in a marked car. That becomes a target. Any law enforcement
So this could happen again in another American city?
It happens every day. Every day, law enforcement uses marked vehicles and unmarked vehicles. It should be no surprise.
What's different is people who are protesting and being put in a van, not being told why.
These individuals that we are targeting, we have seen them commit a criminal act. They've thrown a Molotov cocktail, they've shined a laser in a law enforcement officer's eyes. We have a number of different ways to identify individuals, and then we track those individuals, and then we start to question and arrest them. We are not just simply pulling up to a crowd of individuals that are protesting and grabbing them.
Aside from communication, you would change nothing about what you did on the streets of Portland?
No, short of putting them in a different colored uniform. The camouflage uniforms, I think, took some individuals aback. Some people liken them to military. They are not. It's a fallacy that only military wears camouflage uniforms. Again, we are a uniformed department. We have 9 different operating agencies.
But next time?
Perhaps.
But when you talk about the uniforms, the change you would make is?
We are looking at if we have to send these individuals into other cities, into an urban environment, perhaps having them look a little bit more similar to other law enforcement that individuals in that community can associate with.
Do you expect DHS to go into other cities?
We already have. We already have. So Portland's unique. I hope that there's not another Portland around this country because what we saw there for 60 days is state and local law enforcement not supporting federal law enforcement. That is unheard of in the law enforcement community. Unheard of. What we see in other cities, if a federal facility is targeted in Atlanta, in Chicago, or even Seattle, I'm going to make sure that we have the resources there to protect that facility. And when that threat passes, they'll leave.
Black Americans are 13% of the population, killed by police at more than twice the rate of white Americans. Is there a problem with systemic racism in policing in America?
Absolutely not. Do we have individuals in the law enforcement community that probably abuse their authority? We saw that in George Floyd's death, but we see that around the country. Absolutely. And they should be held accountable.
You do not see
this idea that we have systemic racism is not accurate in my view.
Do you believe that the current system is working?
Absolutely. Again, George Floyd's death is a good example of that. Those individuals and officers that are responsible for that justice system has moved very quickly. Can we always improve and do better? Absolutely.
We're in Anacostia, part of Southwest DC. If you and your detail went outside the walls of this community, like talk to your fellow Americans, they would have a very different view.
Of law enforcement? Of DHS?
Of the idea that there's no systemic racism in policing in America.
Again, I'm not saying that there's not racist tendencies in some law enforcement officers. I think I want to be clear about that. But again, what people mean by systemic racism is that we have designed an institution, a law enforcement institution, to be racist from the get-go. And I don't subscribe to that. I don't believe in that.
We've seen all these body cam and iPhone videos that are coming out that have showed injustice after injustice, city after city. Like those didn't start with the cameras. Like they clearly existed before. That's systemic.
So again, all for calling out inappropriate behavior, inappropriate procedures, but the way to get at that is not to call for defunding the police. The way to do that is not to cut their budget by half. It's actually to increase the training, increase the oversight, and find individuals that are willing to go in.
What have you done to try to understand the point of view of people who feel targeted by police?
We've talked with a number of groups. Noble, which is our black law enforcement organization, I've talked to them. I've talked with a number of DHS entities. We have a very diverse workforce here in DHS.
That's not people in the community.
Right. Again, I think what you have to differentiate is DHS's law enforcement mission is very different than DC Metropolitan Police Department's mission.
Part of your vast portfolio is election security. President Trump talks about a rigged election. Do you think that's a done deal, or is there still time to have an election that all Americans can say was fair and square?
Yeah, I think so. Again, what we are focused here on at the department is making sure that American voters are voting in American elections.
Do you accept the intelligence that Russia is working to denigrate Joe Biden?
Absolutely. What I've seen from the intelligence is they obviously tried to interfere with our 2016 election, and they continue to do that over the last 4 years.
Is there anything that's been done to send a signal to Russia that it's not okay?
Absolutely. We've called them out numerous times, from the department all the way through the administration into the White House. We continue to sanction any number of individuals from Russia. I think we've actually run out of individuals to sanction.
It sounds like you think that you are deterring it, have deterred it, could deter it?
This administration, from DHS to the IC to DOJ and others, are doing everything that we can to hold Russia accountable.
It sounds like you think that we will have an election that people believe, all Americans believe, trust the results of.
Absolutely, and I think
I
think we can do that by voting in person. To be clear, okay. What I think we have a concern about, ongoing concern about, is states that are doing this mass mail ballot voting to any individual in that state, whether they're alive, whether they're dead, whether they're living at that address or not. Folks that need to vote by absentee ballot, absolutely do that. There's a process. You have to go in, you have to identify who you are, you have to tell them why you need an absentee ballot. That is very different than we see mass mail-in balloting.
How different would DHS be under Joe Biden?
Well, I think that's hard to say, but I think if you look at some of the policies that have been advocated by the former vice president, or as well as his running mate, particularly in the immigration space, I think is very concerning. DHS.
Very concerning. What worries you?
Very concerning. Again, our mission at DHS is to enforce the laws as written by Congress. We are the largest, as you indicated.
You're saying the Biden administration wouldn't have enforced the law?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I'm saying that, because what they've asked us to do, the department to do over 3.5 years, is to selectively enforce certain laws that have been passed by Congress. So they want a wide variety of discretion on certain laws and not others. You think it needs to be changed, or you don't want us to enforce it, you just need to change the law. But we're not going to be in this business of enforcing some laws and not others. And absolutely, I've seen not only Senator Harris, but others have written to the department, have asked us under oath to do certain things, to not enforce certain laws passed by Congress.
So you're saying that Senator Harris, as vice president, would be a security risk?
I did not say that. What I did say is I would be concerned about their priorities. I'd be concerned about their selective enforcement of certain laws and requirements that DHS has to administer on a daily basis.
Secretary, thank you for joining Axios on HBO.
Thank you.